Have you ever planted a hydrangea, watered it faithfully, bought expensive fertilizer, talked to it like it was part of the family, and months later it rewarded you with exactly 3 flowers? Meanwhile, your neighbor's hydrangea looks like it belongs in a gardening magazine, and you start wondering if they're secretly using some magical fertilizer. The truth is much less mysterious and a lot more frustrating. In most cases, hydrangeas fail to bloom because of a few surprisingly common mistakes that even experienced gardeners make every year. The good news? Most of them are incredibly easy to fix once you know what to look for. Welcome to Smart Garden. Today, we're counting down 15 hydrangea mistakes that could be stopping your plants from blooming. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to grow healthier bushes covered in spectacular flowers. Mistake number 1. Pruning every hydrangea the same way. This is probably the most common mistake gardeners make, and one of the biggest reasons hydrangeas never bloom. The problem is simple. Not all hydrangeas should be pruned the same way. Panicle hydrangeas bloom on new wood, which means a good spring pruning actually encourages stronger growth and larger flower clusters. Smooth hydrangeas work much the same way and also respond well to hard pruning. But bigleaf hydrangeas are a completely different story. Most varieties produce their flower buds on last year's stems. Cut those stems back in spring, and you've just removed the flowers before they even had a chance to bloom. The result is often a healthy, leafy shrub with plenty of green growth, but not a single flower. Before picking up your pruning shears, make sure you know which type of hydrangea you're growing. One wrong pruning session can cost you an entire season of blooms. Mistake number 2. Planting hydrangeas in the wrong location. Hydrangeas aren't cacti, but they don't belong in deep shade either. If you plant one in full sun all day, especially in hot climates, the leaves may wilt, the edges can scorch, and the flowers often fade much faster. On the other hand, heavy shade isn't the answer. Your hydrangea may produce plenty of lush green leaves, but very few blooms. The ideal spot is morning sun with light afternoon shade. Panicle hydrangeas tolerate more sun than other types, as long as the soil stays consistently moist. Bigleaf hydrangeas are much more sensitive to heat, while smooth hydrangeas prefer moderate light. Here's an easy rule to remember. If the spot feels comfortable for you on a warm summer afternoon, your hydrangea will probably be happy there too. Mistake number 3. Planting in the wrong soil. Hydrangeas thrive in loose, fertile, moisture-retentive soil with good drainage and a slightly acidic pH. If the soil is too alkaline, the plant struggles to absorb iron, causing yellow leaves, chlorosis, weaker growth, and fewer blooms. Heavy clay can be just as damaging because it traps water around the roots, increasing the risk of root rot. Before planting, improve the soil by mixing in compost, peat moss, or other organic matter to boost drainage and moisture retention. All 3 popular types, panicle, smooth, and bigleaf hydrangeas, prefer slightly acidic soil. However, bigleaf hydrangeas are the most sensitive to soil pH. They're also unique because the soil's acidity can change the flower color. In more acidic soil, many varieties produce blue blooms, while in less acidic conditions, the same plant may bloom pink. Mistake number 4. Feeding only nitrogen. Think of nitrogen like candy for kids. A little is great, but too much creates problems. If you feed your hydrangea only nitrogen-rich fertilizer, it will produce lots of lush leaves and long shoots, but very few flowers. The plant puts all its energy into growing foliage instead of developing blooms. Nitrogen is important in spring, when new stems and leaves are actively growing. But as the season progresses, hydrangeas need more phosphorus and potassium to encourage flower buds, strengthen the root system, and prepare for winter. This applies to all major hydrangea types, including panicle, smooth, and bigleaf varieties. They all benefit from nitrogen early in the season, but too much later on can lead to impressive foliage and disappointing flowering. Mistake number 5. Ignoring the first signs of pests and diseases. Hydrangeas rarely develop serious problems overnight. Most diseases and pests give you warning signs long before major damage appears, but many gardeners notice them too late. A white, powdery coating on the leaves may be powdery mildew. Brown or dark spots can signal a fungal leaf disease. Fine webbing and tiny pale specks often point to spider mites, while curled new leaves are a common sign of aphids. The earlier you catch these problems, the easier they are to treat. Inspect your plants regularly, especially the undersides of the leaves. Remove heavily damaged foliage and use the appropriate treatment when needed. Panicle, smooth, and bigleaf hydrangeas can all be affected, so regular inspections should become just as routine as watering. Mistake number 6, underwatering your hydrangea. Hydrangeas are among the thirstiest flowering shrubs you can grow. Even after a summer rain, the soil may only be wet near the surface, while the deeper roots remain dry. That's why it's better to water deeply and less often, rather than giving the plant frequent light sprinklings. A deep soak encourages stronger roots and healthier growth, while a layer of mulch helps keep moisture in the soil much longer. Keep in mind that not all hydrangeas handle dry conditions the same way. Bigleaf hydrangeas are the most sensitive and often wilt quickly when the soil dries out. Panicle hydrangeas are the most drought-tolerant, but still need deep watering during hot weather. Smooth hydrangeas fall somewhere in between, preferring consistently moist soil, but tolerating short dry periods a little better than bigleaf varieties. Mistake number 7, preparing hydrangeas for winter the wrong way. Getting hydrangeas ready for winter isn't about wrapping them up as much as possible. In fact, too much protection can do more harm than good. Some gardeners cover their plants with layers of plastic, trapping moisture and causing stems to rot. Others leave every hydrangea completely unprotected, assuming they'll survive on their own. The right approach depends on the variety. Panicle hydrangeas are the most cold-hardy, and mature plants usually overwinter without much protection. Smooth hydrangeas are also quite hardy, although young shrubs benefit from extra protection. Bigleaf hydrangeas are the most vulnerable because many varieties bloom on last year's stems. If those flower buds freeze during winter, you'll likely end up with a healthy green shrub, but no blooms the following summer. Mistake number 8, digging a planting hole that's too small. Many gardeners dig a hole that's only as wide as the nursery pot. It seems logical. The plant fits, so the job is done. But for a hydrangea, that's like moving from a spacious house into a tiny closet. Its roots quickly spread outward, and if they run into hard, poor soil, growth can slow dramatically. Instead, dig a planting hole much wider than the root ball and fill it with loose, fertile soil enriched with organic matter. Those first few years are when a hydrangea builds the strong root system it will depend on for years to come. This rule applies equally to panicle, smooth, and bigleaf hydrangeas. The better the planting hole is prepared, the faster the shrub will establish itself and produce healthy, vigorous growth. Mistake number 9, ignoring chlorosis. If your hydrangea's leaves start turning yellow while the veins stay bright green, don't assume it's just an early sign of fall. It's likely chlorosis, one of the most common problems hydrangea growers face. This usually happens when the soil is too alkaline, iron is unavailable, or the plant is watered regularly with hard water. In these conditions, the roots can't absorb the nutrients they need, even if they're present in the soil. If left untreated, the plant becomes weaker and flowering declines. Check your soil pH. Apply a chelated iron supplement, and, if necessary, gradually make the soil more acidic. Chlorosis can affect any hydrangea, but bigleaf hydrangeas are the most vulnerable because they're especially sensitive to changes in soil acidity. Before we continue, if you're enjoying the video and finding these tips helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us create more practical gardening guides like this, and you won't miss our future videos filled with simple tips that can make a big difference in your garden. Now, let's move on to the next mistake. Mistake number 10, overwatering. Hydrangeas love water, but that doesn't mean they want to live in a swamp. Some gardeners water their plants every day, even when the soil is still damp. Over time, the roots are deprived of oxygen, which can lead to root rot and a weak, unhealthy plant. Ironically, the symptoms of overwatering often look just like drought. The leaves droop, growth slows down, and yellow patches may begin to appear. Before reaching for the watering can, check the soil with your finger a few inches below the surface. If it still feels moist, wait another day or two. Hydrangeas thrive in consistently moist soil, but they definitely don't want to spend the summer pretending they're water lilies. Mistake number 11, transplanting at the wrong time. Sometimes you realize your hydrangea isn't growing in the right spot and feel tempted to move it immediately. But if it's the middle of summer, especially while the plant is blooming, it's best to wait. Transplanting during hot weather puts enormous stress on the shrub. The roots are disturbed, moisture continues to evaporate through the leaves, and the plant may struggle to recover. As a result, it can wilt, drop its leaves, or even die. The best time to transplant a hydrangea is in early spring before active growth begins, or in fall when temperatures are cooler and the roots have time to establish before winter. This advice applies to all hydrangea types, although bigleaf hydrangeas are usually the most sensitive and require extra care after transplanting. Mistake number 12, removing spent flowers at the wrong time. Once the blooms fade, it's tempting to grab the pruners and cut off every dried flower head. It makes the shrub look neater, but timing matters. For panicle and smooth hydrangeas, removing spent blooms in late fall or early spring usually isn't a problem. Bigleaf hydrangeas are a different story. If you cut too low, you may accidentally remove the flower buds that will produce next year's blooms. That's why many gardeners leave the dried flower heads on the plant through winter. Besides adding seasonal interest, they provide a little extra protection for the upper stems against snow, wind, and sudden temperature changes. Before you start pruning, make sure you know which type of hydrangea you're growing. That one detail can make all the difference next season. Mistake number 13, loosening the soil around your hydrangea. Many gardeners regularly loosen the soil around their hydrangeas, believing it helps the roots get more air and encourages faster growth. It sounds like a good idea, but this is where many people make a costly mistake. Most hydrangea roots grow very close to the soil surface, so even shallow cultivation can damage the fine feeder roots responsible for absorbing water and nutrients. Once these roots are injured, the plant becomes stressed, grows more slowly, struggles during hot weather, and may produce fewer flowers. This applies to all hydrangea varieties, including panicle, smooth, and bigleaf hydrangeas. Instead of loosening the soil, add a layer of mulch to help retain moisture, suppress weeds, and naturally improve the soil over time. Mistake number 14, skipping mulch. Many people think mulch is just for looks, a finishing touch that makes the garden resemble a magazine cover. But for hydrangeas, mulch is much more than decoration. Without it, the soil dries out faster, roots can overheat during summer, and weeds compete for water and nutrients. Over time, bare soil also becomes compacted after repeated watering, reducing airflow to the roots. A 2 to 4 inch layer of pine bark, peat moss, pine needles, or other organic mulch helps lock in moisture, regulate soil temperature, and gradually improve the soil as it breaks down. Mulching benefits all hydrangea types, including panicle, smooth, and bigleaf varieties. However, bigleaf hydrangeas appreciate it the most because they're especially sensitive to heat and dry soil. Mistake number 15, expecting instant results. This is probably the most human mistake of all. You plant a small hydrangea in spring and hope that by summer it will be covered in huge blooms and look like a mature garden centerpiece. But nature works on its own schedule. During the first few years, hydrangeas focus on building a strong root system. Those roots determine the plant's future size, strength, and flowering potential. It's perfectly normal for a young shrub to produce only a few blooms at first. Don't try to speed things up with excessive fertilizer or miracle growth boosters. They won't create instant results. Instead, provide consistent care, deep watering, and a little patience. Panicle, smooth, and bigleaf hydrangeas can all live for decades, becoming larger and more beautiful each year. Sometimes, the best way to help your hydrangea is simply to let it grow. So, those were the 15 most common hydrangea mistakes that can keep these beautiful shrubs from reaching their full potential. The good news is that most of them are surprisingly easy to avoid. Choosing the right location, preparing healthy soil, watering correctly, pruning at the right time, and giving your plant a little patience can make an incredible difference. Remember, every hydrangea is unique. Panicle, smooth, and bigleaf varieties all have slightly different needs, and understanding those differences is often the secret to spectacular blooms. Even if your hydrangea isn't performing well today, don't give up. With the right care, many struggling plants recover and become healthier and more impressive with each passing season. Gardening is all about learning, improving, and enjoying the process. Every mistake teaches you something new, and every successful bloom is a reward for your patience. We hope these tips help you grow stronger, healthier hydrangeas that fill your garden with beautiful flowers for many years to come.